What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90. We are finally here with week 28 of the Premier League predictions. Before we go any further, please do drop a like on the video. The support on the channel has been insane lately, and we're just about to hit the ground running with a lot of uploads. We're getting very, very close to 8,000 subscribers. So if you are new around here, click the subscribe button down below and the bell so you don't miss a single video. Now, I want to give a massive shout out to Shane O'Donnell, who left their predictions on the previous week and the previous video, and they did quite well. I also did quite well. So if you want to get featured in the next episode of the Premier League predictions, then drop your predictions for week 28 down in the comments below. Now, before we get onto this next round of fixtures, there are two postponed fixtures as well, but we will still cover them briefly at least. Let's have a little look back at week 27, my predictions and the actual results. And I have to say, it was one of my better weeks of the Premier League. Not my best, but still pretty decent. Kicking it off, we had Chelsea versus Tottenham. I said it would be a 2-2 draw between the two teams. I did make that prediction before Heung-min Son was ruled out with injury, but it ended 2-1 to Chelsea in the end. I think that scoreline flatters Tottenham a great deal. And also, the whole incident with Lo Celso and the red card. Here's the thing, right? A lot of people, the commentators even said in the game, they said, this is not a VAR error, this is a human error. And I tweeted out saying there's no such thing as a VAR error, because the VAR in itself is just a tool. It just reflects reality, and it's then up to human interpretation to make the right call. There hasn't been a single VAR error with this season. There hasn't been a technical malfunction. They haven't misrepresented the situation. They've shown it in its full glory, and any contentious decision is at the fault of those at Stockley Park. So I think VAR is a good tool when used correctly. We're just not using it right at the moment, but nevertheless, Chelsea deserve the win, and they did get the win. Next up, Burnley versus Bournemouth. I predicted a 2-0 win to Burnley, and it was a 3-0 win to Burnley, so not too bad there. After that, my first correct score prediction of the weekend, Crystal Palace beating Newcastle 1-0. Crystal Palace Newcastle games just have a goal or two maximum written all over it every single time. Next up, Sheffield United versus Brighton. I predicted Sheffield United to beat Brighton 2-1, and surprisingly to most people, it was actually a 1-1 draw, so Brighton held their own and walked away with the point from there. Next up, Southampton versus Aston Villa. I predicted a fairly convincing win for Southampton, 3-1 over Aston Villa, and it ended up being a 2-0 win, but Southampton definitely dominated through that game, but still not a bad prediction nonetheless. Leicester versus Manchester City. I did predict that Manchester City would win by a goal. I predicted 2-1 though, instead of a lower scoring 1-0 thanks to Gabriel Jesus. Now, the Sunday fixtures, the three, were quite good for me, and Man United versus Watford, I predicted a 3-1 win to Man United, and it was actually a 3-0 win. Watford did score a goal, but it was disallowed due to a handball. His arm was by his side, but it did hit his arm there. That's a rule that needs to be, clarified at least. Next up, Wolves versus Norwich. Very, very close again. I predicted a 2-0 win to Wolves, who are absolutely flying at the moment, and it was a 3-0 win to Wolves. And then after this, a very good prediction from me. My second correct 3-2 score prediction of the season. My first one being Arsenal beating Aston Villa 3-2 at the Emirates. I correctly predicted that Arsenal would beat Everton 3-2 at the Emirates as well, so I'm very happy with that. And then the final game, Liverpool versus West Ham. I predicted Liverpool would score 3. I didn't think West Ham would get on the score sheet, however, and Liverpool coming from behind, 2-1 down with an hour gone to win 3-2 in the way that we have come to expect them to do. So, kicking it off with week 28, we have the Friday night fixture between Norwich and Leicester. I think this is going to be a fairly convincing win for Leicester. Norwich down and out. The teams in 19th to 15th are all within a point or two of each other. Norwich way down, and they are going to get relegated, sadly, for Norwich fans. I'm going for an away win here to Leicester, back to scoring goals after a drought against Manchester City. They came close a few times. I'm going to go for Leicester to win this one 3-1. I think Norwich will be able to score at Carrow Road. I think it's about time they get a goal, but I don't think it's going to get them any more than just a consolation in this state. The next game is Brighton up against Crystal Palace. Two teams that are traditionally quite low scoring, usually only get a goal, maybe two if they go on and win the game, but I don't see a winner in this game. I do see both teams getting on the score sheet, with Brighton's home form being better than their away form, and Palace's away form being better than their home form. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. The next game should be a very interesting one. it is Bournemouth up against Chelsea. And interesting because Bournemouth are not only on a slight resurgence after their poor form towards the end of last year and the start of this year, but also Bournemouth have beaten Chelsea in their last 2 meetings, both without conceding, 4-0 and 1-0. So Chelsea will want revenge in this fixture. Do I think they're going to get it? Yes, of course I do. At the time of recording, they play Bayern Munich tonight. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go, but I think it could be a bit of a rough night, maybe a 2 or 3-1 loss for Chelsea in the Champions League. But I think they're going to get the 3-1 away win against Bournemouth in this fixture. I think they're just too good. Chelsea do look like a pretty decent team. You know, they are playing quite well. Even though Tammy Abraham has had some injury issues, I think they're going to get the better of Bournemouth in this fixture. The next fixture is Newcastle up against Burnley. Burnley looking good, absolutely destroying Bournemouth at Turf Moor. And Newcastle coming up just short at Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace. I think this is going to be much different. Newcastle are much better at home than they are away. So they lost to Crystal Palace away. Burnley destroyed Bournemouth at home. But this time, Burnley are away where they're not traditionally as good. And Newcastle are at home where they are much better. So I was maybe thinking about a Newcastle win just because Burnley are more in form. So it would just be such a Newcastle thing to do to go and win this game. So I think if I had to pick a winner, I'd probably go Newcastle, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Now, the next game is very, very interesting. It is West Ham up against Southampton. West Ham have actually beaten Southampton in all of the previous 4 meetings between the two teams. And with West Ham's performance against Liverpool, although they didn't get anything out of it, they actually looked pretty good going forward. They looked like they wanted to score goals, whereas against Manchester City, it's almost as though they went into the game with a defeatist mindset, thinking, well, we're going to lose the game, so we might as well just try and, limit the damage, which they did do. 2-0's not, disgraceful, but when they played against Liverpool and actually played some football, they looked all right. Yes, they're in the relegation zone at the moment, and it doesn't look good in terms of that, but they should be a good enough team with the players that they have to play the way they did against Liverpool, and when it's not against Liverpool, they will pick up some points. So I was going to go for a West Ham win, given that they have a great record, a great recent record against Southampton, and they looked pretty good against Liverpool, but I can't look past Southampton's resurgent form lately, obviously beating Aston Villa comfortably, 2-0, it could have been 3 or 4, they dominated that game, so I think Southampton are playing quite well. I'm going to go for a draw, and a high-scoring draw at that, 2-2 between the two teams, because I didn't quite have the balls to tip West Ham to win. Southampton have been playing well, so I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. The next game is Watford versus Liverpool. I think normal service will resume. Watford, they've been very up and down. They had a really good bump, and now the new manager bounce has kind of stagnated, and now it's unsure as to whether or not they're going to get out of the relegation zone. And against Liverpool, it's not going to be time for them to pick up any points. I'm going to go for a fairly subdued 2-0 away win to Liverpool. Liverpool doing what they need to do to get the win. The next fixture is going to be a very, very interesting one. It is Everton up against Manchester United. And obviously, when the teams met at Goodison Park last year, Everton ran riot and won 4-0. And although they did lose 3-2 to Arsenal last week, I think there were some positives to take from that game, and at Goodison Park, they are a lot stronger. The scoreline prediction that I'm going to go for is very out there. It probably won't happen, and Jordan Pickford will have to have a good game, which, again, probably won't happen. But I just get a funny feeling because Manchester United are in really, really good form. I get the feeling they're just going to lose. I just get the feeling they're going to go to Goodison Park, which isn't an easy ground to go to. And I think they're going to just fall short. I think Everton are looking good going forward at least. Ancelotti's got them playing some good football. And I'm going to go for a 2-1 Everton win. A lot of people say, I always pick the favourites. I always, I never do risky predictions. I'm doing a risky prediction. Everton to beat Manchester United 2-1. United could go there and win, very much so. But if Everton win this, the top 5, top 4 race becomes increasingly interesting. And now the game after this, another game that is pivotal for that top 4 race. It is Tottenham up against Wolves. And, ooh, do I change my prediction? I don't see Tottenham beating Wolves with the form that Wolves are in versus the form that Tottenham are in. Wolves will play Europa League football, which means they might be slightly fatigued compared to Tottenham. But then again, Tottenham are so stricken with injury, they might as well have played in the middle of the week because so many people will be unavailable. I've gone for a 1-1 draw between the two teams, and I think I am going to stick with that. I think just because I predicted 2 other draws this week, or 3 other draws this week actually, doesn't mean that this won't be a draw as well. But I could see Wolves upsetting things and going to Tottenham and getting a win, and I wouldn't mind seeing that. Obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I think it's in Arsenal's best interest for these teams to draw. I think it will be a draw 1-1. Now, the postponed fixtures real quick. Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. I would go for an away win to Sheffield United, 2-1. I think they would have enough to beat Villa, even if it's away from home, because their away form is pretty good. Villa's home form is okay. It's better than their away form, I believe. But Sheffield United, they've just acclimatised to the Premier League much better than Aston Villa. And I think they would get the win there. And the big game that has been postponed, of course, because of FA Cup fixtures, Manchester City versus Arsenal. I'd go for a high-scoring game. I think Arsenal would actually get on the score sheet this time. Just, you know, last year they got absolutely slapped by Man City and they looked terrible. I'm going to go for a 3-2 win to Manchester City. So when the games do happen, I'll stick with my 2-1 Sheffield United and 3-2 Manchester City predictions, and that's what I'll log, and if I get anything correct, it will be based on those scorelines. Things might totally change by the time those fixtures are played because we don't even know the time they're going to be rescheduled to, but nevertheless, that is going to do it for this video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to leave a like on it, subscribe. As I said, we're very close to 8,000 subscribers, so that would mean a lot. And if you want to get featured in the next episode of the Premier League predictions, then leave your comments down in the comments below with your predictions. I feel like I nailed that outro. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and I will see you in the next video very soon.